In this episode, we're going to make malware easier to understand by looking at the main families technicians need to recognize and by focusing on what each one does to a system. For beginners, malware can feel confusing because there are many names, and some of them seem to overlap. The good news is that you do not need to memorize a giant pile of labels to make sense of the topic. What matters most is learning to spot the pattern behind the name. If you know how a type of malware spreads, what it tries to do, where it tends to hide, and what kind of damage it causes, you can usually understand the risk much faster and make better support decisions. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at CyberAuthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Malware is a general word for malicious software, which means software created to harm, misuse, steal, spy, disrupt, or give someone unauthorized access. That harm does not always look dramatic at first. Sometimes the damage is obvious, such as locked files, a screen full of threats, or a system that will not boot correctly. Other times it is quiet, such as stolen passwords, hidden surveillance, background network traffic, or tools that slowly weaken the device over time. This is why beginners should avoid thinking that malware always announces itself. Some forms want attention because fear helps the attacker, while other forms want to stay invisible for as long as possible. A technician needs to understand both kinds, because visible damage and hidden damage are both real problems. A helpful way to think about malware families is to group them by behavior rather than by memorizing isolated terms. Some malware is built to spread from one place to another. Some is built to trick a user into allowing it to run. Some is built to spy on activity and steal information. Some is built to damage files or block access to them. Some is built to hide deeper in the system so it can survive longer or help other malware operate. When you organize the topic that way, the names become easier to handle because you can connect each one to a purpose. Instead of hearing a term and freezing, you can ask simple questions. Did it spread by itself? Did it need user action? Did it steal data? Did it hide? Or did it disrupt normal use of the computer? One of the oldest ideas in malware is the virus. A virus usually attaches itself to something else, such as a file or another piece of code, and then spreads when that host is opened or shared. The key point for a beginner is that a virus normally depends on some kind of user action or system activity to move forward. It does not just appear everywhere at once on its own. A user may open an infected file, launch a tainted program, or move content between devices without realizing what came along with it. Viruses can corrupt files, damage data, slow systems down, or create other problems, but what makes them distinct is that they hitch themselves to something else and travel that way. If you remember that a virus rides along with another object and needs that path to spread, you already understand the core idea. A worm is different because it is known for spreading more independently. While a virus usually needs a host file or some user action to help it move, a worm is better known for moving across systems or networks on its own. For a beginner, the easiest way to remember the difference is that a worm is more self-directed in how it spreads. That matters because a worm can cause a great deal of harm quickly when it reaches many devices in a short time. Even if the worm does not destroy files directly, it can consume network resources, overload systems, and create openings for more damage later. A technician should hear worm and think about rapid spread. That spread is part of the threat, because even a modest harmful action becomes much more serious when it repeats itself across many systems before anyone realizes what is happening. Another major family is the Trojan, and this one matters because it relies heavily on deception. A Trojan is malicious software that pretends to be something useful, safe, or expected so that a user will allow it onto the system. It may arrive as a fake update, a tempting download, a cracked program, an attachment that looks routine, or a tool that claims to solve a problem. The important point is that the trick is part of the design. A Trojan succeeds because the user or system treats it like something legitimate. Once it runs, it may install other malware, open a backdoor, steal information, or weaken the system in other ways. For beginners, Trojan is one of the easiest categories to understand in real life because so many attacks still depend on getting the user to trust the wrong thing. The malware does not break in by force first. It gets invited in. Ransomware is one of the most visible and disruptive malware families because its goal is usually to block access to files or systems and then demand payment. The reason it gets so much attention is that users notice it quickly. Files become unreadable, the desktop may display a warning, and normal work can stop almost immediately. This form of malware creates pressure by turning the victim's own data into leverage. For a technician, the big lesson is that ransomware is not only about encryption or locked screens. It is also about disruption, panic, and time pressure. Attackers want the victim to feel trapped and to make bad decisions fast. Beginners should understand that ransomware damage is often broader than just one folder of missing files. It can affect shared data, backups, business continuity, and trust in the whole environment if it spreads before it is contained. Spyware is another important family, and its purpose is very different from ransomware. Instead of locking things up and demanding attention, spyware tries to watch, collect, and report information without the user realizing it. That information might include browsing habits, credentials, messages, system details, or other activity that helps the attacker profit or prepare for deeper compromise. Spyware is dangerous because a user may continue working normally while information is quietly leaving the system. The machine may not crash, and there may be no frightening message on the screen. That can make people underestimate the threat. A technician should hear spyware and think about hidden collection. The main harm is not always obvious system damage. It is the loss of privacy, the theft of useful information, and the possibility that stolen data will later be used for fraud, account compromise, or more targeted attacks. A keylogger is closely related to spyware, but it deserves separate attention because it focuses on recording what a user types. That can include usernames, passwords, messages, notes, account numbers, and other sensitive entries. For beginners, this is a good example of how malware can target behavior instead of targeting files directly. The attacker may not care about slowing down the computer at all. The attacker may care most about harvesting secrets from normal user activity. A keylogger can be especially damaging because typed information often includes the exact credentials needed to move into other systems or accounts. A technician should understand that if a user's passwords or account sessions keep getting abused even after resets, hidden monitoring may be part of the story. The problem may not be only the password itself. The problem may be that the system is being watched while the new password is entered. Adware is often treated as less serious than other malware, but that can be a mistake. Adware is commonly associated with aggressive advertising, unwanted pop-ups, browser changes, forced redirects, and other intrusive behavior meant to generate revenue or push the user towards certain content. In some cases, it may seem more annoying than destructive. However, adware still matters because it interferes with normal use, can weaken trust in the system, may collect data, and sometimes acts as a path to more dangerous content. A beginner should not assume that because something looks like a nuisance, it is harmless. Persistent redirects, fake alerts, strange search results, and a flood of unwanted ads may point to adware or to something even worse hiding nearby. From a support point of view, adware matters because it changes normal behavior in ways users notice, and that makes it one of the more common visible warning signs that a device is no longer operating cleanly. Rootkits are important because they focus on hiding. A rootkit is meant to help malware stay concealed, keep control, or avoid detection by working deep in the system. For a beginner, the simple idea is that some malware does not just want to run. It wants to stay hard to find. That makes rootkits especially troubling because they can interfere with the normal view of what is happening on the device. If security tools or users cannot clearly see the malicious activity, then cleanup becomes harder and trust in the system drops. A technician should hear rootkit and think about hidden control at a deeper level. Even if the exact technical details are advanced, the support level lesson is clear. Malware that hides itself, can make the system unreliable in a more serious way because you can no longer assume that what you are seeing on the surface tells the full story. Bots and botnets bring another angle to malware because they turn infected devices into controlled workers for someone else. A bot is a compromised device or process that can receive instructions, and a botnet is a group of many such infected devices under outside control. The attacker may use those systems to send spam, launch attacks, spread more malware, or consume resources for some larger purpose. A user may not realize their computer is participating in anything unusual at all. The device may just seem slower, more network-heavy, or strangely busy. For beginners, the important idea is that malware does not always target only the victim's own data. Sometimes the goal is to recruit the device into a larger operation. In that case, the infected computer becomes part of someone else's tool set. That is why even a system with no obviously valuable files can still be useful to an attacker if it can be controlled quietly. Another category worth knowing is fileless malware, because this term often sounds confusing until you focus on the main point. Fileless malware is known for relying less on traditional malicious files stored neatly on disk and more on using legitimate system tools, memory, scripts, or built-in features to carry out harmful actions. For beginners, the reason this matters is simple. Many people picture malware as a bad file you download and then scan. Fileless attacks break that mental picture. They may use trusted tools already present on the computer and leave less obvious evidence behind in the usual places users expect to find it. That can make detection harder and can allow the attack to blend in with normal system behavior. A technician should hear fileless and think about misuse of what is already there. The threat is not always a strange new program. Sometimes it is familiar tools being used for harmful purposes. It also helps to understand that one infection can involve more than one malware family at the same time. A Trojan may deliver ransomware. Spyware may include keylogging features. A rootkit may help other malware stay hidden. A bot may arrive through a deceptive download and then pull in additional tools later. This is why technicians should avoid acting as though every incident will fit one clean textbook label. In real support work, malware can overlap, change roles, and create symptoms that point in several directions at once. The skill is not to force everything into a perfect category. The skill is to recognize the main behavior you are seeing and understand what kind of harm that behavior suggests. If files are locked, think about ransomware. If data seems to be leaking quietly, think about spyware or keylogging. If the system is hiding changes or resisting detection, think about deeper concealment. For a beginner technician, behavior and impact are the best guides because they connect directly to what users experience. A user may report that documents suddenly will not open, which points toward one kind of threat. Another user may report fake warnings, endless redirects, or search results going somewhere strange, which points toward another. A system may seem unusually slow, constantly busy on the network, or resistant to security scans, which points toward different possibilities again. You do not have to be a malware analyst to make use of these clues. You just need to listen carefully and connect symptoms to likely behavior. That is why this topic matters. Recognizing malware families is not about sounding advanced. It is about noticing what the system is telling you before the damage grows, spreads, or turns into a larger support and security problem. As we close, the most important lesson is that malware families make more sense when you stop treating them like a random list of scary words and start connecting each one to what it does. Viruses attach and spread through host files or activity. Worms spread more independently. Trojans rely on deception. Ransomware blocks access and creates pressure. Spyware collects information quietly. Keyloggers record typed secrets. Adware disrupts the user experience. Rootkits help hide malicious control. Bots turn systems into workers for an attacker. And fileless malware uses trusted tools in harmful ways. Once you understand those patterns, the topic becomes much easier to handle. You do not need to know every deep technical detail to be useful as a beginner. You need to recognize how malware spreads, how it hides, what it damages, and what it tries to steal so you can see the warning signs earlier and respond with better judgment.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.